So my left table broke up and I'm now playing heads up. On the right table I pick up pocket queens and I'm going to re-raise something like around 10% of my opponent's stack size. Their stacks are around $20, so I make it $2 more to $3. Re-raises generally don't have to be so big because almost any re-raise is going to bloat the pot big enough to get stacks in by the river. On the left table, I check back queen 10 offsuit for reasons I hope you understand by now. I hit top pair and I expect him to fold a lot when he checks, but I don't want him to free roll some gut shot draw or 3-outer going to the river, so it's important to bet. On the right table we get a great flop with our overpair against DJ Grinder, who is looking a bit fishy running 22-6, which is pretty passive. I bet around half the pot, planning to go for 3 smallish streets to easily get stacks in by the river. Now, the turn is a little tricky, and I might be going too thin for value, but I don't really see myself getting any more money with this hand, unless I can get it on the turn, and I can value bet against pocket 4s and pocket 5s, which is a pair and a gut shot, but only if I bet relatively small to convince them to call. Additionally, by betting 375 into 13, it may get him to call with some other pairs that we beat, like pocket 9s, pocket 10s, and 8x. Well, that river card is pretty brutal. Unless he has 8x, a lot of his calling range on the flop should be a set 2-pair or a straight by now. It's a little entertaining to think that maybe he can't value bet 2-pair or a set when there's an obvious straight on board, and I can bluff catch. But bottom line is, I don't think he's turning a made hand like 8x or pocket 9s into a bluff, and I don't see enough air he can have by the river, except for maybe king-jack of clubs. Therefore, he's just going for value and I have to fold. Now guys, look what I'm doing on the left table. Some guy sits down with 40 big blinds, and I suspect he isn't very good. Therefore, I don't want him to have position on me every hand. I want position on him, so I'm going to bunny hop over to a seat that will make my relative position at the table more profitable. So, this is a good time to talk about seat selection, which is paramount to playing a wider range than normal, because it is important that you will always potentially have position on a fish. Where the fish are sitting relative to you at the table will affect your opening range, and therefore how much money you can make from them. In this graphic, I'll give a general value out of 10 how valuable the fish's position is. If the fish sits directly to your right, it's worth 10 easily. Unless the fish has a button, you will always have position on him every other hand. If the fish sits 1 away from you, then it's still worth 10. The main reason being, if you're under the gun, you can still raise the same range for value as if the fish was sitting directly to your right. So generally it's optimal to be sitting directly to the left or 1 away. Now, if the weak spot sits across from you from the table, then the value goes down a bit. It's worth 8, which is still pretty good, but if I'm under the gun and there's only regulars in the blinds, then I'll have to tighten up my opening raising range. Stuff like Jack 3 suited gets cut out, and suited connectors like 6-5 suited. Anything that will play pretty weak out of position against a fish aren't going to be playable, because I can expect to only play pots out of position with these hands from these positions. But still, that's only when I'm under the gun, so any other turn will play pretty well. Now, when the fish has position on us, 1 off from the left, the value just takes a dive. Maybe in reality it's not that bad because most people are tight in early position, so you'll still have position on this guy when opening your range from late position like cutoff and button. But just someone like me whose range is spread evenly among all positions at the table is going to have to tighten up under the gun in middle position, and that's going to be a burden at the table. Now, if the one fish is sitting directly to your left, it has no value, even if he's 100 big blinds deep. You're just going to always have a difficult time extracting value and playing your hands in general when you're always playing out of position. I think I once heard that position is pretty important in poker. In any case, where the only fish is to my direct left, I'm just getting up and finding somewhere else to play. Now, these were only situations where there was only one fish at the table. The value of fish that have position on you go up if there's other weak spots to compensate. In this case, with 2 fish to our left, it's more worth it to be tight. And here, I can expect to play pots in position against the fish on my right. If you want to be really nitty with table selection, and there's some shorter fish at your table, I suggest only playing if you have position on both of them. Otherwise, I'm sure you can find, better tables out there. Remember that table selection is very important. But the next step is good seat selection, and getting on a table just to be the right of a fish is going to be useless. So if the opportunity arises, hop hop. I want to draw your guys' attention to my head. I mean, just look at it. That sure is a lot of numbers. Now who the hell wants to keep track of that? I don't. I'll be honest, I don't even know what half those numbers mean anymore. When we first get into online poker, we get really excited about these tracking softwares and HUDs. Like, it's going to be the magical edge to winning at online poker. But really, the only stats I care about are VPIP and pre-flop raise, which is at the top left of my HUD, and the sample size at the top right. And all I really use this for is to distinguish regulars from fish. If I get up to about 200 hands, then I'll start paying attention to the 3-bet and fold to 3-bet stat, which is underneath the VPIP. I'm pretty strict with waiting for 200 hands to wait for the 3-bet stat to converge because it's just way too easy to run hot pre-flop. Now, it looks like some interesting hand went down on the right table, where some fish makes a flush on the turn and doesn't raise. Then when he gets checked to on the river, he mashes the pot button for value. I gather that this is how he plays all his flushes, and if he ever raised me on the turn when it was through to a flush, I would take the flush out of his range. He could still have 2-pair or better, but not the flush. I also expect him to pot all his big hands for value on the river, so I make a note of it. On the left table, I flat King 10 offsuit in the blinds because the open raiser is a fish. The only read I have on him right now is that he was marked red when I was scrolling through the lobby. I called with this hand because I want to get involved in as many pots as I can with fish, and King 10 is just two big playable cards. I'm comfortable going broke on this flop, trying to stack worse 10s and pocket pairs like pocket 9s, pocket 8s, pocket 7s, and get value from hands you might want to peel one more street with like ace king or ace queen. The 7 is sort of a nice card because he'll probably peel another street with 10-9, 10-8, pocket 9s, and pocket 8s. Well, on the river, my hand is pretty much a lock, but here it's very important that I bet almost his entire stack, but not put them all in. The only hands that I beat are hero calling, like pocket 9s, pocket 8s, and ace king. At any stakes, a fish could be sitting down with their case money, so if they ever have to make a big hero call, leave them a few big blinds to remind them that if they're wrong, they still have enough money to play 2-L tonight. And it looks like he sucked out on me on the river, but, that's okay. Looks like we played the hand really well. On the right table, I'm going to cold call this small 3-bet with ace-queen suited. My intention is to only hit 2-pair, 3-of-a-kind, or flushes, because the 3-betting range should be pretty strong, and I can't rely on just one pair, especially out of position. And on the left table, I raised pocket deuces on the button and got a caller in the blinds. This is just a standard c-bet on this paired flop to get him to fold any unconnected cards. I'm not going to barrel this 10 on the turn because it's a heart, and he'll definitely check call another street if he picked up a flush draw. However, I don't mind barreling non-heart 10s or jacks on the turn because it brings a second overcard to his range of pocket pairs that called the flop. On the right table, I'm going to raise King 8 suited out of position to isolate Smackin' Out, who limped first to act. If he called 100% of his limping range, then this out of position ISO would be a leak, but I'm going to raise anyway with some hope that he folds some percentage of the time pre-flop. I'm going to rely on my skill level to prevent me from burning too much money out of position. So I'll start by check folding this disastrous board. On the turn, I make middle pair really good kicker, and I expect it to be good almost all the time because he probably bets all his 10s on the flop. So I bet for value against all the one-heart flush draws and all the weaker pairs and pair plus gutters that have a lot of outs against me. As has been the theme in this video, I get some bullshit river. I'm pretty much beat by 90% of the random range he called the turn with, because it's either a straight or 2-pair now. I don't really have any option but to check and hope he checks back, I don't know, a7 or pocket 6s. He bets 6 into 7? This large bet generally means his range is polarized, so it's like a flush or nothing, but I'm going to take a flush out of his range because he mashed the pot button in that last hand. I don't think he can value bet this strong with 2-pair or a 1-card straight, so I'm pretty sure he has ace-x with the ace of hearts and I'm good. What? Well, I guess I still got his hand right. Hold on. This was the same guy, right? Uh-huh. Well, whatever. So he owned me this one time. This just serves to show that a read, a play, or anything in poker doesn't work 100% of the time. But I have to trust how I hand read and expect my call to be right often enough to be profitable.